What's up, everybody? So we're getting a little bit closer to spring and the start of our CSA program. So I thought it might be a good time to get everything started as far as like getting growing in the garden here. So we're up here in the plant lab, and as you can see here, we've got a lot of stuff growing. Here's the tomatoes, and they're doing pretty great. I haven't been up here for a little while. So I'm glad that everything is surviving. There's the kale, which is our victim today that we're going to be planting out. Also going to be planting up this blueberry plant. As you can see, when I first got this thing, it was actually just basically sticks, no leaves. So I was hoping that putting it under the LEDs would help it out on its journey to being planted out. And in the meantime, I got some fertilizer that is acidic. So good for the blueberries, good for raspberries, hollies, azaleas, those sort of things. So we're gonna get that planted out and fertilized properly. But just wanted to kind of give you guys a little insight on what we got going on here. It's been a little while since I've done a video, and I know I've been talking about it a lot on the podcast. So just want to get everything rolling so that we do have a good, successful first season with our small CSA that we're running here. So right now what I'm going to do is take this kale out, and we're going to plant this in a fabric raised bed that I got as a sample from work. So I love those samples, and that's kind of one of the cool perks about my new job as a product manager is I'm working with the categories of greenhouse production, field production, container production, fertilizers and treatments. So basically all the stuff that I love, I get to work with that every single day, kind of get on the cutting edge of things. So I'm going to be taking this out and setting up that new raised bed, and then planting everything up. Then that will clear up this space, and I still haven't removed the dead microgreens, so going to get that cleared up too. And, just get everything growing at an optimal rate, I guess you would say. And so I have a lot of stuff that I really want to get doing, get growing, whatever. So we got a bag of soil in here. We got some cow pots. And, I just have so much shit going on that I just can't, focus in on one thing. And that's part of being a grower. You just got to pull yourself in 8 different directions. But just a quick little tidbit on these cow pots. Pretty cool little product. It is actually made from, I'm guessing and hoping, pasteurized cow manure. That's what why they call it a cow pot. It's made from cow shit, and basically formed into these pots, which it's very similar to a Jiffy pot or a peat pot, if you're familiar with that. So I haven't really grown in these. I know actually last year I had some mint that I grew in them. They did pretty great, broke down very well in the garden. There's no signs of them around, so it's a good organic product to use. So I'm going to be planting up some tomatoes and some other starter plants in this for customers who want to grow their own garden, and then get everything else planted out in the garden. Actually, just the kale out in the garden, so that we can have a good supply. And then other than that, I'm just going to be planting like a madman. So I know right now I'm going to do the kale that we got started, got the radishes, and then I'm going to plant out probably some spinach, some lettuce, and just fill this raised bed up. So once you see that, you'll see, it's got a pretty good size on it. I think it's about 18 inches wide by about 6 feet long, holds about, I think it's 18 inches deep. So it'll be perfect for what we're doing with the greens. Throwing in some radishes, lettuce, spinach, the kale we got started, and some Swiss chard. So, there's a lot that we can really offer from the start. And this was prompted by one of our customers, Leslie, who will be just probably with us for the month of June. So that's cool. I love, I was so excited when, I ran a small little Facebook ad on my page, and got 2 or 3 responses, so I'm pretty happy with that. It's we can't handle a ton of people with our small little setup, but I kind of want, I secretly want to be overwhelmed by it, have 500 people, you know, maybe not that many, but like 50 people, and just see like, can we do that? Can we do this with our small little scale garden that we got growing in the backyard? And you know, obviously I'm utilizing some room at my parents' house, and you know, I know my grandparents are willing to, you know, they're going to be growing some stuff too. They actually got chickens so that we can add those in, add some eggs in, and then I know my mamaw, who, my other grandparent, was very, you know, she was open to letting me grow like tomatoes and some stuff at her garden so that she could get her, you know, I actually gave her some produce this year, so kind of slacked on that last year. So if you're ever watching this, mamaw, I'm sorry, but I promise we'll have a ton this year, and you'll be the first one to get the bell peppers, the tomatoes, and whatever else you want. So, stay tuned. We're going to be planting everything out in the raised bed and kind of go from there. So thanks, and we'll be back. And actually, I don't know why I really paused that. I'm just going to take you guys with me. That's kind of the reason why I got this selfie stick. This is my first time actually using one, so I'm not really sure what to do. Like, should I do it like this so you see my fucking messy ass house? And this is my upstairs. That's the kale. That's where I do all my eBay business, and that's where the magic happens. So, and in case you're not keeping up with the podcast, basically what I'm doing with my eBay business is using that as like an engine to fuel my my wants, my desires, my addiction to growing, and you know, just using that as like a very aggressive savings account. So what I'm doing is like going out buying stuff from Goodwill or TJ Maxx or like an outlet store, you know, things like that, and then, you know, buying things that are actually going to, you know, sell for more on, you know, other platforms. Basically just a real retail arbitrage, you know, buying it for less here, selling it for more on this platform, and you know, that's just sales. And like, you know, I'm glad that I started this before I got into the product manager role that I'm in now, because now I'm not doing any sales. Like, people are selling to me, so it's like kind of a very like different thing. Like, I never thought, like, you know, I never wanted to be like a salesperson, and like now that I've actually gotten into sales, I'm like, or you know, been in sales, and now that I'm not in sales, I'm like, man, like Gary Vee's podcast isn't really hitting home as hard for me. But at the same time, you know, I've got this business that I'm trying to, you know, get started, get lifted off the ground. It's doing pretty good. You know, small steps, and it's not all about the money. Like, it's more about like chasing my passions and my dreams. And, you know, I think that's what's important. And, you know, so I'm glad that I have that eBay, just because it's like, I'm not just doing marketing, I'm not just doing branding. Like, that is more about like merchandising and selling. So it's like creating, like combining like my old job with my new job. So it's pretty cool. Like, I like it. You know, I don't know. I think people think it's like an ugly thing, like to be grinding like that, and like, you know, well, you're a fucker for like selling this for less on here, or selling it for more than what you bought it for. And like, people think that profit is ugly or like an evil thing, but you know, fact of the matter is, if you can get it at a good price and sell it to somebody else for a good price comparatively, like, you know, I mean, it's a win-win. Like, if people are buying, it's a win-win. Like, it brought value to one person, and that's all that I'm looking for in my business. So, I'm going to get my shoes on, and then we're going to go out here and get some stuff planted up. All right, shoes are on, doors open, kale is going out. And so I always feel weird about, like, you know, I live in town now, so I always like feel a little weird about like being on my phone or like talking to myself, like what I'm actually doing a podcast. So, whoops, I accidentally took a picture of myself. But so, you know, like, you know, you're always kind of worried about that, like what people are gonna think, but fuck them, you know, honestly. So here's my garden. You can see here, I've right here, I've got coffee grounds, eggshells, and clementine skins. And obviously I need to till that in. That's going to be another project. I mean, today might be a decent day for it. And then you can see the garlic here. So garlic. And if you see those yellow pebbles there, that is some fertilizer I got from A.M. Leonard. There's a busted bag, so I took advantage of it, grabbed it, threw it down, and it actually really helped out my garlic. So like you can see on this guy right there, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's kind of got some yellow tips, which is actually like, you know, I thought it was just a leaf burn from like being, because this thing's been, I mean, that garlic's been growing for like 2 years in that area now. So, you know, I grew it from bulbils, which are like very small versions of bulbs, and so it's taken a couple years to kind of really get up to that level. So I thought that being out in the cold was giving it some leaf burn at the tips, but it's actually because of the lack of nitrogen. So it really helped to throw that fertilizer down. And it is a controlled release, so it's going to release over like 3 to 4 months. But we've had a lot of rain here, so I'm sure that unlocked a lot too. So, into my messy ass garage, but that's how a garage is supposed to be. You can see all the orange A.M. Leonard tools over there. That is the antiquity of the garage right there, and that's actually a pretty cool because my papaw. So that's hillbilly for grandpa, for those of you who don't know. That's something that he actually used in his garden, and I never knew that he gardened when he was alive. So, you know, I was like, my mamaw had given that to me, probably more of like as an heirloom. I think she thought that I could use it, and I just really don't want to. I don't want to like break it, and you know, I'm sure he would be like, you don't have to worry about that, it'll be fine, but I don't want that on my hands, you know. So it's actually okay. So I just grabbed that raised bed, and it is called, it's just a big bag long bed. So it looks like it's pretty generic, like I don't think it's like branded or anything. 6 foot long. It is, I think, 18 inches wide and at least 12 to 18 inches deep. So it holds about 3 cubic feet of soil, or 10.3 cubic feet of soil. So as you can see here, I've stocked up on some soil mix. I got 5 bags, and those are 3 cubic foot bags. So we're going to use about 3 to 4 of those. And then I've got a bunch of root pouches up here too, which is just a fabric pot. And that's where I'm going to be growing like a lot of my tomatoes in. And that's a 10-gallon pot. So last year I grew in 5 gallons, but this year, you know, I think it's just going to be a lot better to switch it over to the 10 gallons. Get a little bit bigger root mass, a little bit more area for it to, you know, sit on as far as like the width of the container. And then, and then Basil's down here. She loves the garden. She loves growing stuff with me. So she's always my loyal companion in the plant lab or in the garden. You know, as close as she can get. So I'm going to grab some bags of soil, and then we'll meet you on the other side. All right, so we're going back inside this grow tent, or not grow tent, but the grow bag, or whatever you want to call it, the fabric raised bed. It's actually pretty intense. It's a lot bigger than what I thought it would be, and it's actually from a reputable company, High Caliber Growing, I believe is the name of the company, and you know, they make wide variety of products, mainly like for tree growing, so that's why I was kind of surprised to see their name on this. But I came back up here to get my my stand, my photography stand, and my mic, so that we can so I can show the whole setup. Apparently everything isn't going to work out on the selfie stick, so stay tuned, and we'll eventually get to the growing, planting. Alright, so we're back now, and just want to try to get everything set up a little bit better so that you can see everything and kind of see me struggle with this fabric bag. And fabric bags are great because they allow for a lot of airflow, and that facilitates a lot of good growth. One of the things that people really overlook when they're growing is like the oxygen that's getting to the roots. So I think this is going to help, and it's also really versatile. Like, you can just grow anywhere you want. Obviously, it needs a little bit more input with some soil. So we're just going to add that in now, and then get the kale growing in there as well, and kind of go from there. So. There we go. Alright, so we've got everything, or got all the soil in here. It took about 3 bags, and there's still, some space that could be filled. And, obviously the bags aren't going to be perfectly rectangular or square or whatever the end goal was, but that's okay. Obviously it's a fabric, so it's going to mold to how the material is filled into it. But this is a really good soil we got here. Got a Berger mix, and it's the BM7, which is just really rich. It's the pine bark mix. You can see a lot of peat moss. The white stuff is perlite, gives it some aeration, and you can definitely see there's a little bit of pine bark in there as well. So I've had really good luck with this. This is the same stuff I used for my seedlings. I think it'll do great out here as well. So right now I'm just kind of evening everything out. As you can see, the dogs are going ape shit in the background, chasing each other around. Thought they had a shoe, but I think that they're just having a good time. So weather's finally getting nice here, so that's a great sign. And now what I'm going to do is just plant up some of these kale seedlings that we've got started, and really I'm just hoping that they pop out of here real easy, because I know, just looking at how some of the stems are a little skimpy on these, so it's not like you can just pluck it out of there. So I'm just really hoping that I can kind of push from the bottom and get things to pop a little bit. So I'm going to work on that, get these guys transplanted. We've got about probably close to 70. I mean, just around the edges, on the very ends of the trays, and some of the sides are empty, but other than that, it's looking pretty solid. So, kale is not something I've ever started in a seed tray before. So as you can see right there, I just pulled that out, and it is not ideal for how you want to start these. So, I'm just fearing that I'm gonna rip off a lot of the that root mass by being a little barbaric with it. So I think this just gives a little some pointers for the future. But what you want to do is kind of just squeeze the tray, squeeze that plug, and then you can really see that root development come out of there. So this is really what you want. That first one was kind of a bad example, but this is great. And you can see these roots are really white, kind of hairy, and that's what you really want. So there's a lot of branching out going on, and I think that has a lot to do with the mycorrhizae that we used when we planted these, which is a beneficial fungus that helps the roots develop. It's kind of develops a symbiotic relationship with the roots. So the soil's so loose I don't really need to dig it out. But what I'm going to do is just kind of make sure I have like, hands width away from the edge, so about 4 inches or so, and then maybe like a 6-inch in between each plant for, just to give them some breathing room and make sure that they're growing, far enough apart that they can survive, but close enough to cut back on like the weeds or, any other issues like that. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go down this line here and just hope for the best on some of these, because the stems are just very very delicate, so like the way I'm doing it is not ideal, but as you can see, they're hardy. That's a good little root mass for a plant like this, and we're just going to kind of follow that hands width rule and tuck them in there nice and gently. Just make sure they have some room to grow. So I'm going to continue with this, and like I said, I've probably got about like 70 plants to plant, so it's going to take a little while, so we'll speed this up for you and check back in once we get to a good point. But yeah, this is what you really want to see with roots. I'm going to make sure that you can actually see that. So see that white, just very like it almost looks like a fungus, so it's a very strong root system, and I think that we're going to have some really strong plants coming from that. Alright, so we're finished up with planting the kale in this little box here. Again, in the fabric raised bed. And it took about 3 bags of soil to fill it up. And then as you can see, that tray of kale took up 1, 2. And what's cool about this thing too is that it's got these little slots. So, especially if you want to, that'll kind of help like break up the roots. In the case of like if you had like, it'd be perfect size for like 3 tomato plants, or you could grow pepper plants in it. I mean, whatever you wanted basically. So got it packed with the veggies right now. Gonna fill this last spot in with probably spinach or Swiss chard, just to give it a little extra zing, a little aesthetic, what's going on here? A little, aesthetically pleasing, Swiss chard, I don't know if you know, but the kind I got is rainbow shard, so it's like yellow, like the stems are like yellow or red, just really vibrant colors. So gonna do that, and probably not today because Kyla just brought home Chipotle, and it looks like it's about to rain, so I'm about to clean up, and we'll keep you posted on anything we do in the future, and stay tuned. Thanks for listening in. And I gotta stick with my theme. Thanks for watching, and as always, I appreciate it.